And today, like I promised on the Discord that I'm a part of, I'll put the link in the description or the box or whatever you call it. Anyway, Opus 20 is about to drop, and I wanted to give everybody a couple cards that they may want to pick up for the foreseeable future, just to enhance your gameplay. So we're gonna start in no particular order, but number one is gonna be Cosmos from Opus 1. It is a cost 2 backup that can be any color or any element, so it's just that good. Now you see here a standard copy, which is the non-foil, is going to be 35 cents plus shipping. This is a pretty decent card. Now if you buy the anniversary box, which is about 40, you'll get 3 of these and 3 of the Chaos cards that I'll go through later on, and a few other things that probably would help you as well. You get some Shintotos and whatever, but this here, 35 cents. If you want a foil, it's like 30 bucks, I think. Let's yeah, 32. So 35 cents to a dollar for a card that can literally color fix any deck. So in my opinion, I think it's pretty good. The next one we're gonna go over is Arden. He is a legend from Crystal Dominion, or Opus 15 if you're nasty. What he does is when he enters the field, you discard your entire hand. When you do so, your opponent selects selects one more than the number of cards discarded from 3 actions. So if you discard 2 cards, they pick 3. If you discard 4, they pick 5. But the issue is, in order for the effect to actually work effectively, you have to discard something. Your opponent can select the same action more than once, so that's also another problem. But if it's like late game and they have you in a lock, let's say you have 2 cards, your opponent selects 1 character they control, put it into the break zone. Your opponent puts the top 20 cards of their deck into the break zone. Arden deals your opponent 1 point of damage. So if they have a fully stacked field and they don't want to give it up, they're either going to have to mill 20 cards or take a point of damage. And depending on where it is in the game, that can put them in the chokehold. And not to mention, if you have a backup plan for what you discarded, let's say you discarded some Black Waltzes, 1, 2, or 3, those are going to proc after the fact. So you can have a backup plan and you can do really whatever you want. So in that regard, I think that's pretty good. It's a high risk, high reward type of card, but for 80 cents to a dollar to $2, can't really go wrong with that, in my opinion. Plus it's a card that can do damage itself or block. So 9k cost 5. I mean, let's be real. Sophie is a legend from Opus 13 Crystal Radiance. She is a cost 2 earth and water. For each earth forward you control, she gets 2 stacks. For each water forward you control, she gets 2 stacks. And at the end of each of your turn, if she has 10,000 or more power, draw 1 card and she deals your opponent a point of damage. Now this card is limited to 1 for obvious reasons, but I think this card is pretty busted, because all you need is 3 forwards outside of her. It doesn't matter if they're earth or water, and she automatically gets 10k. Granted, she is a cost 2, so there is the unfortunate thing that she can be Ixion, but truth be told, I mean, they still have to give up resources to cast the Ixion, and this card not only deals a point of damage and gets you an extra card, but it also can attack for 10k or block for 10k. So if you're going up against something like Warrior of Light, if you have 4 forwards on the field plus her, I mean, that's 12k for her, and it beats Warrior of Light, and then, I mean, you still reap the benefits. So it's a good card to have, and granted, it's at 1. I would buy 3, if you can get it at a good deal, because they're anywhere from $10 to $17. But just on the event that it comes off the list, I would keep it. Then we have Aerith, Opus 8, Legend, 3 cost, 7k. The forwards you control don't receive damage that is less than their power. If she is dealt damage by a summon or an ability, reduce the damage by 2k instead. When Aerith is put into the break zone, activate all backups you control. Now, this is good for going against the Hekatonchires or whatever. If you can find a way to keep your stuff over 8 and protect them, that way you don't have to worry about that. If you're doing an ability and somebody Amaterasu you, I guess that's a hard combination to say, this protects it from being destroyed, or at least taking 8k worth of damage, and your effect might be nulled, but that, I mean, you still get to keep your fully powered forward, and she stays on the field. She protects herself from summon damage or ability damage and reduces it by 2k. So that's a whole protection. And then there's a lot of decks like Fire that like to ping you over and over again. This nulls that out as well. And it's also a Wind Final Fantasy VII character. So there's a lot of potential with this card, and it's going up, as you can see here. About 6 months ago, it actually it's going down. Okay, $4. I think it's pretty good, because I was playing some decks at the Texas Materia Cup, and they were pinging me, and I couldn't really do anything. But this is one way to stop that. Plus, with all the other cards coming in Opus 20. Then you have another Aerith from Opus 3. If you control a category 7 forward, the cost of playing Aerith is reduced by 1. The forward you control cannot be chosen by your opponent's backup abilities. The more we get into the game, the more backup abilities are going to become prevalent. And something like this, where a lot of decks don't really deal with backups, this can protect your forwards from even have to worry about any backups in the future that may or may not do anything. And for $3, I mean, it's not bad. $5, $20, you get a play set, and that's shipping and taxes and all that other stuff. But I think this is a really good card, not only because it's a backup, but because it protects your forwards from any future backups that may come into the game and try to do things to your board. So there's that. Princess Sarah, this card's expensive, but when she enters the field, you get to name an element. She becomes that element, and then you can dull her, and all the forwards of the same element as her gain 1,000 until the end of the turn. So it's a 1-drop, can be any element that you need. So let's say you don't have Wind in your deck, but you have 2 or 3 Wind cards that you want to cast. You can call Wind on that, and that's your Wind backup for the rest of the game until it's either dealt with or you don't need it anymore. So that's really good in my opinion. It's a hero. I don't see it getting reprinted anytime soon. If it does, then hey, that's part of the game. But yeah, I just bought mine not too long ago, and I bought a foil. I only bought one, but it was more expensive than this foil here. So that's just something to consider. Une. So this is a Opus 10 hero backup. 6 costs is a lot to play this card, but when you cast a summon, choose 1 forward you control, remove it from the game, then play the remove forward onto the field dull. This effect will trigger only once during your turn and only once per turn. So I was playing somebody in a fun match at the Texas Materia Cup that used this with Terra, the Opus 15 Terra, I believe. They're really, really nice looking one. And every time they would cast a Shiva, Terra would get removed from the game and then come back, and then the guy would show his hand, X amount of summons, and then he would get the Dolan Freeze that many. It was horrendous. So as long as there's cards that can work in tandem with this that let you cast a summon, if you can play it and it has a good enter the field ability, this is something that you might want to have in your wheelhouse. And for 25 cents for standards, or 30 cents for foils, 39 cents for foils, I would go ahead and get these, because you just never know what they're gonna come out with, and you don't want to get caught paying more than what you need to for cards when they were already cheap. Refia. So this is from Nightmares, Opus 19, cost 3, 7k legend. At the beginning of the attack phase, during each of your turns, activate all the Job Warrior lights you control. When 4 or more dual characters are activated by this effect, draw 1 card. Dual 4 active warrior lights, choose 1 for your opponent controls, put it at the top or bottom of its owner's deck. So this Warrior of Light is, that's what the general consensus of Final Fantasy is. A Warrior of Light, Warrior of Darkness, Cosmos, Chaos, Materia, Spiritus. There's always going to be Warrior of Light cards. So there's always going to be somewhere where this card can fit in. And it's only 97 cents for a legend from a set that just dropped 3 or 4 months ago. Not to mention, it's a 3-drop water that lets you just control the board. You can dull cards, and then at the beginning of your attack phase, you activate all those Warrior of Lights. So even if you need to get rid of something on their turn, dull them all on your turn, they activate. If they have something else you want to deal with, dull them all during your main phase, and then at the beginning of your attack phase, you get to draw a card. So that's invaluable to me. Lightning. Opus 15 Crystal Dominion. One cost ice, 9k. Alright, the cost required to cast her is increased by 1 for each card in your opponent's hand. If you have 2 or less cards in your hand, she gets 1,000 and haste. At the end of each of your turns, if each player has no cards in their hand, lightning deals your opponent 1 point of damage. So ice has a mechanic with ice lightning that lets you Dolan Freeze and make your opponent discard cards. So if you can do this, get her out for 1 cost, she gets haste if they have no card, 2 or less cards, and then she can attack for 10k. Then if nobody has cards in their hand, she deals them another point of damage. So not only is she pinging them for damage on the swing, but pinging them for damage for not having cards. And then when they draw for their turn, they're going to get 2 cards, and they can either pitch 1 to play the other and have no cards again, pitch 1, use backups to generate the other ones to summon 1 or cast 1 or whatever and have 1 card. And if you're already on this loop of making them discard anyway, they're not going to have any cards at the beginning or at the end of your turn. So that's another free point of damage, even if you don't attack. Now it is a little expensive. Now I'm from Yu-Gi-Oh, so expensive to me is going to be different than it may be for you. I'm from where 1 card was $25 and you needed 3. So this is still expensive to me because it's cardboard. So anything over 20 cents, I'm like, I don't know if I need that. But $10 for a non-foil, and then you get into uncharted territory with the foils that are going for $27. So people are starting to buy it. So I would get your play set or try to trade some, or if you have a friend that doesn't play the game anymore, see if they have them. Materia, Opus 13 Crystal Dominion. She is a 1-drop or 1 cost light 2k legend. You can play 2 or more light monsters on the field, or light characters on the field. When she enters the field, you may pay X amount to search and play 1 light forward of however much you paid. And then when a light forward other than Materia you control is put from the field to the break zone, draw a card. You can only do that once per turn. So there is I'll pull it up in a minute after this one. But there is a card that I don't have on this list, so I'll just pull it up after this. But there's actually 2 cards. I'll just go ahead and pull it up. Noctis is one of them, so put this down here so I'm not clickety clackety all over the. This is one that you can use for that combo. Pay 2, bring out Noctis, and then Noctis can form a party with any element. This is also a card that I would suggest that you pick up, because when a party is formed, if it's 1 to 2, he gets to pick 1. If it's 3 or more, he gets to pick 2 abilities. And the abilities are pretty good. So I mean, you get to choose a forward, deal it AK. Choose 1 monster, break it. Choose 1 character, dull and freeze it. Noctis gains haste, or you can draw a card. So you have to pick 2 different ones. But I mean, there's 5 options for you to pick for. So I really think that that's a good card to go with that for that. And then you have Maria, which I'm gonna look at the full art because the full art's really nice. This card is really good, especially if you need to get a backup off of the field or away from the backup zone to play another backup. So the forwards of cost 2 or less other than Maria get 2k. And then when she enters the field, you choose 1 backup you control, activate it, it loses all of its abilities and becomes a forward with 8k. So if you get a 2 cost forward, make it a 2 cost backup, make it a forward, give it 2k, it gets 8k from the jump, and then it's going to get 2k from her boost. That's a 10k backup that you turn into a forward that is now just raining chaos amongst everything. So of course these are expensive for the full arts. I mean, I'm probably gonna buy some before I post this video, so if you see some missing, you know why. But you do also have this one for 50 cents, which is just a steal. I mean, you can't beat these prices. I might actually buy some of these as well for 50 cents. I mean, this is the card you have extras of because it can't do anything but go up in price. Because not only does the materia card just make it to where this is just ridiculously easy to bring out. You play materia, pay 2, get Maria. Maria pulls a backup. You have 3 forwards from a field of essentially nothing that you can either attack with next turn or go into full blockage. A 10k, a 6k, and that would make materia a 4k. But you're not really trying to block or attack with materia anyway, but the option is there. Omega. This card is pretty good from Opus 14. It's a legend. Costs 5, and then at the end of each player's turn, if there's no counter weapon counters placed on Omega, place 1 weapon counter on Omega. If 1 or more weapon counters are placed on Omega, Omega deals your opponent 1 point of damage and remove all weapon counters from Omega instead. When Omega is chosen by your opponent's summons or abilities, you may remove 1 weapon counter, and if you do, Omega gains cannot be broken. So it protects itself, it deals damage to your opponent, and it's 10k, and it's a 5 cost. So I don't think I have to really say much on that. It's dark, so you probably don't want to run a bunch, but because of certain cards, I'll show you can cheat this out easily and not even have to pay the 5 cost. So let's go to that. Shinryu is technically the opposite of Omega in this card set, probably not in the game, but when he enters the field, deal 10k to all forwards of cost 3, 6, 9. Dang, she fine. And your opponent controls. At the beginning of your main phase 1, during each of your turns, reveal the top card of your opponent's deck. If it's a forward, all the forwards your opponent controls lose 7,000. If it's not a forward, draw 2 cards. So regardless of what they draw, you are benefiting. Whether it's a forward, you're hitting everything they have for 7k. If it's a summon, a monster, or backup, you're drawing 2 cards. So you're getting advantage off the rip regardless. And then you're getting card knowledge. So it's a win-win. And I mean, there's a new Shinryu coming out in Opus 20 that if you don't want to play this one on the field at the time, you can drop the other one to activate the other one's effect. So all in all, it's a good card. It's around $6, $7. I would at least get one. I'm gonna be real with you. At least get one. If you like it, go back and get more. But you can cheat this out with materia. So there's that as well. Spiritus is gonna be the exact opposite of materia, except for 1 point. When a dark forward other than Spiritus you control is put from the field into the break zone, choose up to 1 forward, remove it from the game. So he's removing forwards from your opponent's field. Materia is letting you draw cards. So he's also going to let you play 2 or more dark monsters onto the, not monsters, I'm sorry. I'm from Yu-Gi-Oh! Dark characters on the field. So that's backups, that's monsters, that's forwards. But he has to be out first in order for this to work. But yeah, he's pretty cheap. $2, 134. Light play full foil, 250. So I mean, pick it up, get 3. You may need it. Warrior of Light. I think this is one of the best cards that's been released in a long time, because for each forward you control other than this, he gains 1,000, and then you can remove him from the game to give all the forwards you control. This forward cannot be broken into the end of the turn. You can only do this during your opponent's turn, but remember, they can only Hecatoncheer you on their turn anyway. They can there's only certain effects that they can do on your turn. So if you have something that needs to be protected, you have an option. I mean, it goes as low as 75 cents. So yeah, definitely get this. And you can also cheat this out with materia. Yuna. So with so many summons coming out and so many different Yunas, you have more Yuna power to do Yuna things. The cost required to cast your summons can be paid with any element. When Yuna enters the field, you may pay 3 wind and 2 of anything else. When you do so, search for up to 6 summons, each of a different element and cost, and add them to your hand. When you cast, this is her special ability. When you cast a summon this turn, you may cast 1 summon from your hand with a cost inferior to that summon you cast without paying its cost. So there's a couple of cards that reduce the cost of summons. So you have that in tandem with this, that's gonna let you just basically, or what it's called, double cast summons, and then it's basically free real estate, because you have up to 6 in your hand that you can just blow away. And we all know how Win works. Win is just ridiculous when it comes to keeping things up as far as backups and CP control. So I mean, $1 is as cheap as it goes. This one's lightly played. You can get this for basically $5 a playset. So if you're thinking about running a summon oriented deck, I would get this. I can't say this name and I'm not even gonna try. This is the full art. This full art used to be super cheap, and I'm not gonna lie to you, these are the ones I bought. Because it's a 4-cost drop 8k that you can return it to your hand, play 1 forward of any element of cost 7 or less from your hand to the field. That there alone, like, is if you could put Warrior of Light in a mono ice deck just to be weird, play this, next turn dull it, send her back to your hand, play Warrior of Light, and then just play her again, and just keep doing like all your high cost cards. You're just you're never having to pay full cost. I mean, of course, you may want to cast Warrior Light to reset all your backups and whatnot, but this right here lets you cheat almost any forward in the game. And I mean, let's see. I don't think her normal version is expensive. 10 cents. 20 cents. 40s for foils. 49s for foils. So yeah, I would definitely pick this up because Ice is Shiva. Shiva is a fan favorite summon. So they're always going to give Ice some sort of support. And this is one of the summon cards that I was telling you about earlier. So one cost haste, 7k legend, that's $1. It can attack or block, but you can cast one summon from your hand. The cost to cast is reduced by 3 and can be paid by any element. And then you remove that summon from the game after you, instead of putting it into the break zone. You can make the strongest summon easy castable. And with Yuna, you're already being able to pay for it with any element anyway. But this just lets you reduce the cost even more, even further. Now, I have to pull up this one because it reminded me. There's a Unalesca that's also water. That's pretty expensive on the foil end, if there's even any foils left. Yeah. I don't like buying lightly played anything, but 49 cents. But the cost to cast your summons is reduced by 1 for each job summoner you control. And then when she enters the field, choose a summon in your break zone, place it at the bottom of your deck. So not only can she attack, but she goes in tandem with Mia, Yuna, Aiko, Garnet, any of those summoners. And you can they're only going to make more summoners because there's a lot of summoners in the universe of Final Fantasy. So you have this with the other 2 cards, Maya and Yuna, and then you're working with Grease. You're cooking with Moro. I just wanted to bring this up real quick because this card has haste. It's a 3 cost, 6k. It can form a party. The forwards you control can form a party with any element, and then when you form a party, you get to discard 1 card and then draw 2 cards. So it's kind of a hand resetter. And then at damage 5, when Moro forms a party and attacks, he deals your opponent damage. So you're getting 2 cards, well technically 1, but you're dropping 1, getting 2, and then you're dealing them opponent damage. Plus you may be killing a forward or dealing them opponent damage. So that's just a good card. It's 10 cents. It's a hero. If you want some foils, $1. So just trying to give y'all the cheat codes. Orphan, the card that a lot of people know about, but a lot of people don't want to use. When Orphan enters the field, or at the beginning of the attack phase, during each of your turns, choose up to 2 forwards or monsters your opponent controls, place 1 Doom counter on them. Then break all characters with 3 or more Doom counters placed on them. So there's a card called the Goddess coming out in Opus 20, and I'm going to go over that in a later video. But this works with that because this can put counters on technically up to 4 or forwards in 1 turn, or characters, forwards or monsters. But she breaks everything that has Doom counters. So if you have these on the field, her and then the other the Goddess, they will never keep a field unless they can blank out your abilities, and you don't even have to attack. So this card and the one that's coming out, she's gonna be a legend. She's probably gonna be $2-3. I don't think she's gonna be expensive. I hope not, because I need 3. I don't need 3. I like 3. This is 20 to $1 cent wise. Get these, please. Just do it. Zidane. This is a Zidane a lot of people sleep on. It can't can't be blocked, period. When he deals damage, choose up to 1 forward, return it to your opponent's hand, and then you can steal. Your opponent reveals their hand, select 1 card in their hand, your opponent removes it from the game. You can cast it as though you owned it this turn. You can only use this ability through your turn. Now, a lot of people would rather the one from Opus 15, I believe it is, the one where he has a mask, but this one can't be blocked. When he deals damage, he returns something to the hand, and then you don't really have to use the steal ability, but it's good to have, I guess. But it's 52 cents to $1, and foils 30 cents. So, or at least that foil is. So, just do it. Just do it. And the last card I have is Chaos, which is basically the opposite of Cosmos. Cosmos and Chaos can be played on the field regardless if you already have a light or a dark. And then that just lets you open the floodgates to stuff like Materia, the new Spiritus, the old Spiritus. So yeah, these are just some of the cards that I think are pretty good. And I hope that you can look into this list and kind of find some more cards that you think you should get before Opus 20. But these are just some of the cards that I figured you should get before Opus 20 because they're gonna, in my opinion, be game changing. And the more you know, the better you can be prepared for upcoming events, upcoming local play, all that good jazz. But thanks for watching. This is New Never You, BGM. And if you didn't know, now you do. Peace.